Welcome to the Moscow School District Community Schools Podcast. This is Brian Smith, principal of Paradise Creek Regional High School. I'm the district coordinator for career technical education and the coordinator for community schools. What's community schools? It's our district program where we utilize partnerships with all the surrounding area business and other folks to make sure if there's any needs within our district, we can take care of them so every student can be as successful as possible. This podcast is intended to introduce our whole community to important programs and things that are happening in our area, in our school district, and it could not be possible without the local education fund provided by the Nez Perce Tribe. We received this grant at the end of the last summer. It allowed us to transform an entire room into a podcast studio. We have all industry-grade equipment, and here we are on microphones talking. So today I have a very special guest. As part of our grant, we wanted to ensure that we could bring a representative from the Nez Perce Tribe in at least once a quarter to our podcast to both educate our community, learn about the Nez Perce Tribe, and see about future opportunities and partnerships. So today I have Mr. Harry Slickpoo Jr. from the Nez Perce Tribe. Harry is a collections specialist for the tribe, an educator at Lewiston High School, consultant for various areas that you're going to hear, and this is going to be a really special interview. So, Harry, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I love it. So I have to say first, when we got this grant, we went to this beautiful award ceremony with the tribe where every program that won was announced, but you were brought in to do a presentation on the Nez Perce language. Mm-hmm. And I was captivated. For 30 minutes, I couldn't keep my eyes and ears off of what you're presenting. And I had to find you in that room to bring you here, right?
Yeah.
I'm like this random person. I'm going to have this podcast. I promise it'll happen. So Harry agreed to come in. And in that presentation, you really delved into specifically the Nez Perce language. Do you mind talking a little bit about that presentation and really what is your role within the tribe and the greater area?
I just wanted to say these few words here today and begin by introducing myself in my own language. In Nez Perce, we would say titokatimpt, or nimiputimpt. And so the introduction that I'm going to give you is a traditional way that we present ourselves to people who might not know us, or when we're visiting other places or we're in a large crowd of people. This introduction gives people an idea of who you are and where you come from. And so by recognizing my relatives, my ancestors who came before me, and telling you who they are, in some way you could hopefully connect and say, oh, hey, I know that person, or I'm related to his grandmother, or something like that. So this is the reason why we do our introductions this way. Inwenakisa tiskat ilpel titoka timki, ka soyapo timki wanakinwas Harry Slickpoo Jr. Inimwas pila eptitin miwit ka nimi puhama. Inimenak niktwas tama ka piemnia kamyak pawako tawyasa pamapo. Nato tiwaka tiskat ilpil ka naklatsi waka waich timni. Kapnim pist tiwaka wetyatmas tamalichin ma. Na eats he was chichilla ka he was kalapoya potitoken chakchansi kinech. So I just wanted to say, my language, my name is Tiskat Ilbilt, and that does mean red skunk. And I received that name from my father, who received that name from Harry Hayes. My paternal grandfather was the late Alan Slickpoo Sr., and his father was Samuel Slickpoo. My mother's name is Sandra Slickpoo, and she's an enrolled member of the California tribes at Chukchansi. And I just wanted to say, thank you for inviting me here today to provide a few words here to the students and community of Moscow.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Harry. That was excellent. I think I'm actually going to borrow from that for future podcasts, just to say, can we use something like this format to learn so much more about somebody other than a name?
Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
So, please talk to us about your role within the Nez Perce Tribe.
Sure. So for the past 2.5 or almost 2 years, I've been working as the collection specialist at Hitamaniwas Research Library. Hitamaniwas means a place to learn. So in 2023, I answered a job posting, and they were looking for somebody to start developing a library for the tribe. And so I worked with Ann McCormick, who's the economic development planner for the Nez Perce Tribe. And since 2023, we've been working to develop policy, build up a collection of books, resources, documents to better bring resources to our tribal members, our students who are in college, people who want to learn more about the Nez Perce people specifically. All of our materials in the collection are going to be focused on Nez Perce history, Nez Perce culture, and Nez Perce language. So that's what I've been doing for the past couple of years. And in doing that work, I've had the opportunity to work with a few different partnerships and collaborate with federal, local, state, and other tribal organizations. I've worked with Washington State University, Nez Perce National Historic Park, Yellowstone National Park, and I'm just out there trying to share a little bit about who we are as Nez Perce people, sharing the language and the culture as much as I can wherever I go.
What an immense responsibility. I mean, you're talking about an entire people, right? In a rich history. So when you're collecting these items, are you finding that you're having to transfer them to something that's tangible? Like if it's not in written language already, you're the one that's writing down historical facts, historical ideas, or is it a combination of both where you're finding things that are already published, already available, and just organizing them? I'd just be curious to hear about that.
Yeah, so language revitalization and language work really involves, it's a work in progress, you know. Mm-hmm. Even at teaching at Lewiston High School, you're always creating a new lesson or a new exam, or you have to do those because those resources aren't there for you. It's like we don't have like Spanish or French. We don't have a Nez Perce language book that we a course text that we teach out of. So in that instance, we have to be able to, as teachers of the Nez Perce language, count on our own abilities to bring materials to our students.
Yeah, well, I mean, that just adds to the responsibility there. You mentioned Lewiston. Do you mind highlighting what you do for the Lewiston School District?
Oh, yeah. So in 2023 to 2024, I began work as the Nez Perce language teacher at Lewiston High School. So this 2024-2025 is my second year, and we're just coming to the end of our first semester, and my students are ready for their final presentations in class. They're ready for their final exam.
It's that time of year.
Yeah. So hopefully they're studying because this is finals week.
Yeah, we're bringing you in at our finals week. That's so you can feel the tension in the building.
Yeah, but it's really fun to be doing that kind of work with the students because it allows me to expose them to more than just Nez Perce language. Because you can't have the culture without the language. So I'm bringing them different aspects of the culture. I'm bringing in presenters and guest speakers, elders from the community, people who teach them how to make things with their hands. I have somebody who's going to come in to teach my students how to weave. We go on field trips. We go out to the museum at Spalding. We've been to STEM fairs. We've been on a jet boat ride up Hell's Canyon, And so being able to be in that role as an educator for an off-reservation school district is something that's really good, because I'm reaching students, tribal students, who would rather not be exposed to the language or the culture, like if they were going to school at, say, maybe Kamiah, Kuski, or Fino, or Lapwai. So being able to reach those students and help get them a better understanding of who they are, I think, is important.
Oh, absolutely. Just representing all of those learners. And I imagine, do you have students enrolled in the class that are not part of the Nez Perce Tribe?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and I've received some criticism from members of my own community about, oh, you're just out there teaching the Soyapos how to be Nez Perce. And the way I look at it is, if there's a willing learner, I'm willing to teach those people what little bit I know. I'm not an expert. I don't know everything. But what little I do know, I'm willing to share. Because if you're going to it with a negative mindset of, I'm just going to teach tribal members only, it's kind of not a good situation, because actually, to be honest, there's really a lack of interest in tribal members to learn our language. So we need to be creating allies and creating places, safe places where we can speak about our language without feeling like, we have to, it's some well-kept secret that we have to keep to ourselves. If we're over in France, we're probably going to learn French. If we're over in Spain, we're probably going to learn Spanish. If we're over in Japan, we're probably going to learn Japanese. But you're right here in Nez Perce country, so having the ability to learn this language not only benefits you, but it benefits the tribal communities by supporting their lifestyle, their life ways, the way that their point of view on this world. Because in one word in Nez Perce, you can say an entire sentence in English. So that our language is that complex. Like one example would be Imemuye Tepelukukum. That's a really long word, but it says an entire sentence in English. Imemuye Tepelukukum. And I just like to, one of the longest words that I know, but it's also kind of a cool concept in the translation. It comes from a legend story where Coyote is up in the mountains with the children, and they're talking about deserting a naughty boy and leaving him stranded up in the mountains. And this word means that those children are going to come down out of their hiding places.
Oh, wow. A lot of depth in one word.
Yeah.
Well, that's an example of what you said. There is no culture without language, and language without culture. To know the story and understand the context. I mean, obviously, this is a bit of a learning lesson to say that phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. So, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, when we're in the classroom and there's large words that are like that, I always tell my students to break it down into chunks, syllables that they can manage. Once they get that, then they add on the next syllable until they build up and they can say the entire word.
When you presented to us the first time, that is one of the first things that stuck out, was the sounds within the Nez Perce language are so different than the words that I'm used to saying. So, I mean, it sounds beautiful. It does. Like every phrase you've said already in the podcast, and when I've seen you before, the sound of the language itself is really interesting. But so you break it off into small chunks, but describe to me a little bit about the history of the sound. Why do you think the language led itself to have such a dialect that sounded that way? Is there a reason for that, a historical part to that?
Well, there's a lot of tribal people who say that our language comes from this land. The same concept of indigenous people never went out and named every mountain or named every river, named something after people. the people were actually named after the land. So the people that lived historically in this area were Tatchinmapu, the people of Tatchinma. Tatchinma refers to a spotted fawn. Tut is how you say that in Nez Perce. And then the in means like a thing with. So it's a thing with spotted fawns. So Tatchinmapu. And so we call ourselves by the place where we live. We don't name the places where we live. So that's a different kind of concept than what we're used to naming. Now, if you look on the map, there's all kinds of colonial names, including Moscow, Idaho.
Sure.
That if you take a look at the Nez Perce name of it, has a different kind of meaning and gives you a different point of view of this land.
What is the Nez Perce word or phrase for this area, Moscow specifically?
Tatchinma.
Okay, yeah.
Tatchinma. And Moscow Mountain, I believe, is Tatchinmachs. And I kind of have a little, because I was reading your questions ahead of time. So I kind of have a few of these place names around this area that I wanted to mention.
Yep, absolutely. Please share.
And so starting over here on the east side of Latah County, I think of Kendrick and Julietta. And then I'm going to work my way around down the Snake River and back up towards Steptoe and back down over to here, okay?
Yeah.
So Kendrick in the Nez Perce language is Heyuchtzpa. And Heyuchtzpa refers to place with rabbits. Tuniwema is Julietta, Idaho. And the Potlatch River is Yachtoin. And the people that lived all along that area were Yachtoino. And then you get down into places like Tsiwikta. Tsiwikta is Coyote Gulch. Coyote Gulch is one of the places that, we'd use to get up onto the Palouse.
Mm-hmm.
And that name, Tsiwikta, refers to the trail coming down. Then we have another tributary called Otwaima. Otwaima was a place where I first met you at the casino.
Yeah.
The Hathaway Creek. And then we come to Lewiston, Idaho. That's Seminikem, and that means a confluence of two rivers. And across from Seminikem is Pamapo, and that refers to the people who live on the other side of the confluence, or Clarkston, Washington. Then further down the river, down the Snake River in Nez Perce has 3 different names. From its headwaters in Yellowstone through southern Idaho, it's called Tewelkanimkoos. And then as it runs through Hell's Canyon, it's called Pikunin. And then below the confluence at Lewiston and Clarkston to its confluence at the Tri-Cities is called Himacus Nimawalapa. That's another long word.
Yeah.
But along the Snake River, there's also places like Watwaway, Alamota, Penewatwa. And then you go back up towards the Palouse, Ipelutpa. Ipelutpa is our word for the Palouse River. And the Palouse Falls, it talks about something sticking up out of the water. Ipelutpa. And then finally you come over to this place today is called Steptoe. And in the Nez Perce language, that's Yamustas. And some people might not know this, but Colfax, Washington, was actually one of the reservation boundaries of 1855. Oh. But that Colfax in the Nez Perce language is called Tinatpa'ama. Tinat Ba'ama, and it refers to a tributary that had no fish. And, of course, the area around Palouse, Washington, and over to Pullman, Washington is the Paleutes. And, of course, that's where the name for the Palouse comes from.
Right.
And then, again, back to here, Tatchinma, Moscow.
You know, this is extraordinary. I love hearing the descriptions and understanding like the geographic influence. You talk about like a confluence with no fish or something sticking up. One of the greatest reasons for living here for us, like my family and others that I know, is that it's so rich in recreation areas and areas to go out and see the land that we live on. So if I'm a family listening right now and I spend my weekends taking my kids out in this area, what are some resources or places to visit that could help us better understand what this land was and what this land is, and especially to the tribe?
There's a lot of opportunities out there, from the Bitterroots to the Blues is what all kinds of places to access parts of Nez Perce history and parts of Nez Perce culture. The Nez Perce National Historic Park has over 30 some sites in the national park system, anywhere from Buffalo Eddy up past Asotin. Learn about the petroglyphs and pictographs that are along the river. That's one site that people could go to. Also stopping by like the Ant and the Yellow Jacket on Highway 12. And even visiting the places, there's historic landmarks around the casino, all the way from the reservation boundary of 1863 right there at the casino and up to Spalding Bridge. In that short 2-mile stretch, 3-mile stretch, there's a handful of stories right there. You just have to look to the left and look to the right to see these geologic legendary places where our stories come from, including like rattlesnake and cottontail rabbit, or coyote's fishnet, or elbow baby, or the animal people have a meeting, or the old Miss Frog. Miss Frog is sitting there as well. And then, of course, going up, if you have time, go up to Kamiai. There's the Heart of the Monster. And they have a kiosk there at that site where you can push the button and it will tell the story to you. And so I think, that's also an important place, because that's where the Nez Perce people come from, is that heart and the blood of the monsters. So, yeah, that's a really important site for the Nez Perce people still to this day. And at Kamiai, because that's where I grew up, I just have to let you know there's more than just the heart that's in Kamiai. There's the liver, the monster's chest. Coyote left his fingerprints on the hillside. And then there's also Monster's last footprint that sits there up Lawyer's Canyon. So those landmarks let you know that these stories actually are true. They actually really happened. We have evidence that's left that we still talk about and show people today.
Oh, yeah. That sounds an extraordinary experience for any family to navigate any of the places that you just shared. Is there a website or somewhere that we could maybe see a listing or some guidance, anything you'd recommend?
So if you wanted to learn more about Nez Perce language, I would suggest going to hipaknut.org. That's HIPEEXNU, hipaknut.org. Hipaknut is a nonprofit organization, works towards educating young people and adults alike in the Nez Perce language. And that's owned and operated by Bessie Walker. And also the Nez Perce language program itself has a website, is nimipuutimt.org, NIMIPUUTIMT.org. And there's tons of audio and visual recordings, documents, PDF files language lessons that you could download and learn, follow along. If you search up people on YouTube as well, there's people who throw things out there on YouTube. The Umatilla language program, the Colville language program, Leslie Moses. If you search Leslie Moses Nez Perce on YouTube, she has a lot of material. And as far as other community events, I wanted to mention that all of the universities in this area have a powwow. So if you want to go out and experience some of what the dancing and singing and all that, what we call pacham is a war dance. Nowadays they call it powwow, and it's kind of, really modernized and commercialized, but there's, small powwows like these in our communities that people still attend. They come from far to, take part in these activities. But LCSE, during Native American Awareness Week in Lewiston, March 17th through the 21st, they have a lot of activities all week long. And then on Friday is usually the powwow. Then the University of Idaho here in Moscow, on April 9th, there's going to be a powwow, and it's usually at the Kibbe Dome, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then finally, WSU, they have a powwow on April 19th. April 19th over in Pullman, and that one's usually at Beasley Coliseum. Also, there's Northwest Indian College, the Nez Perce site, has a lot of continuing education credits. So people who are from the community can, if they're interested in taking one of their classes, such as Nez Perce language, they can enroll without being an accredited student. So, and those are open to, you have to talk with, the site manager and the Nez Perce language instructor to get into those classes. But those are also resources that you could think about for people connecting to the culture.
This is fantastic. So much information. I appreciate you having the dates and everything. Hopefully, folks can keep coming back and forth to this podcast to grab more information. And if you're comfortable, I'm going to share your contact information as well if somebody wanted to reach out to you.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to ask, though, so do you have concerns over the future of the Nez Perce language?
Oh, yeah, for sure. As I look at recordings of my grandfather, Alan Slickpoo, from the 80s, and he talks about, 50 years from now, because he made these recordings of his elders. And he talks about, the status of the language, what it's going to be like in 50 years if we don't do anything. And here we are almost 40 years later, and we are in a very, I guess, a hard place to be in, because we don't really have access to elders like we did back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. And on one hand, we have people who we would consider like fluent elders, and then we have on another hand people who are trying to teach the language. So there's only few of us who are really putting in effort to preserve the language and share the language and teach others. But I think that there has to become more teachers. We need more teachers. We need more people to speak. And I encourage everyone all the time, Watu mawa atolayo emem ni mi putimt. Watu mawa atolayo emem ni mi putimt. Never forget your Nez Perce language.
Oh, beautiful. I'm so honored that you were willing to come on our podcast, and hopefully we can be just a bit of a part of this journey that you're on. There's so many depths and so many levels, so this might seem like a surface level question, but take it where you'd like. With all the work that you've done, you are clearly inspired by this work. It comes across in your voice and your personality. But what brings you the most joy in your life with all the roles you hold within the tribe?
Oh, what brings me the most joy is probably just to see the growth in my students. to see where they come from on day one till graduation is really something that's cool to see the growth in that student to where they become not just somebody that can memorize lists of words, but somebody that could actually speak and conversate and hold a conversation. One of my students from last year of first year teaching at Lewiston, he's now a student of the Nez Perce language at LCSC. And the LCSC instructor there told me, hey, that kid, he's really wapsu. That means he's really smart. I said, yeah, he did all that on his own. He's so interested, and that's what I mean. We need more people like that student to become allies and help to preserve our language. Even though they're not a tribal member, they can still put in that work to save who we are.
Oh, yeah, and it's so relevant. This is where we live.
Mm-hmm.
And this is rich history. I love that story. We oftentimes have teachers on the podcast that always speak about those one or two students that stick out for their success. So congratulations. Mm-hmm. You're on your second year at Lewiston High School teaching such a unique course. And to already have a success story with your first set of students moving on to the college level is awesome.
It's great. Uh-huh.
Well, we appreciate that. As we head towards the end there, is there anything specific that you'd like to share with the greater Moscow community area here? Because, again, we have students, teachers, parents listen to this podcast. Is there anything you'd like to tell our area specifically?
What I would tell the Moscow community is just make space like we are today here. Having this opportunity to meet with you and to share a little bit about who we are brings more understanding about, our connectedness to this land where we come from. We've been here for, the archaeologists say we've been here since 16,000 years ago plus from the Salmon River digs that they've done. And we're not going anywhere. We're always going to be here. So let's work together to make this a better community for not only for you, but for your neighbors as well.
Oh, that was fantastic. I want to stress again that the entire podcast studio, this program that's utilized with our speech classes, and as Harry and I were talking about, we're going to have more students taking over the engineering of making these podcasts. This was all made with tribal dollars through your local education fund and the outreach area. And part of our responsibility in receiving that grant is that we get to make space. And I've said it again, I've said it already, but it's an honor to have you here. To listen to you speak is quite the experience. So do you have any performances, any masterclass or anything coming up that a date we could share so folks can maybe find their way to you? Because I'm sure you're getting it through the podcast, but Harry is also a bright personality, and there's so much of your expression when you're explaining things. So when can we see you speak about language?
Well, to be honest, I'll be back here at Moscow High School next month, and I'll be talking at the library, presenting Nez Perce Legend Stories. So that will be your next opportunity to visit with me and hear some of my words.
Oh, perfect. Well, we'll make sure to advertise that piece out. So, Harry, thank you again, sir. This was so enlightening. I just feel so privileged to live in this area with such rich culture and history and be part of the space that we share. So thank you for everything today. We hope everybody enjoyed this podcast. Make sure when you listen to share out with teachers, families, anyone in the community. We're all in this together, and it's about sharing space and all growing from it. So until the next episode, we'll see you later. Thank you.